Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Рад приветствовать всех сегодня здесь. И предваряя лекцию профессора Виссемы, Виктор Валентинович представит, наверное, более подробно нашего гостя. Я хочу поблагодарить всех, кто сегодня нашел возможность принять участие в этом мероприятии, потому что, на наш взгляд, разговор будет очень интересным, потому что профессор является признанным экспертом в области анализа развития современных университетов. Для нас эта тема чрезвычайно актуальная. Сегодня российские университеты очень много размышляют над изменением модели, над пониманием своего места в конкурентной ситуации международной. И действительно очень важно понять, чем мы отличаемся, и осознать уникальность и преимущества в огромной массе 30 тысяч университетов мира. И я очень рад, что томские университеты участвуют в этой глобальной конкурентной игре, называемой программой, так сказать, Excellence, программой 5.100, которая поддержана правительством, и правительство делает особую ставку на Томск. И в этом смысле, конечно, размышления о нашем выборе осознанном, они являются чрезвычайно важными. Кроме того, уважаемые коллеги, я хочу пригласить всех на конференцию, которая сегодня начинается. Здесь же в 12 часов начнется пленарное заседание уже третьей ежегодной конференции HR Trend, где мы вместе со специалистами из российских университетов, со специалистами из ведущих компаний будем обсуждать проблемы, связанные с управлением талантами, развитием человеческого потенциала, обсуждать современные кейсы и практики лучшие, которые позволяют сегодня университетам продвигаться, с одной стороны, по формальным основаниям, а с другой стороны, развивать и удерживать университетскую культуру. И завтра у нас состоится целый день тоже мероприятий, связанные с заседанием наблюдательного совета, попечительского совета Института экономики и менеджмента, который мы создали. Приедет еще много наших коллег и зарубежных, и российских. И я хочу поблагодарить присутствующих здесь и профессора Ларсона, и профессора Виссему за любезное согласие участвовать в работе попечительского совета Института экономики и менеджмента. И мы надеемся, что это наша первая встреча. Наши коллеги будут работать в Томске все 3 дня. И будет у нас возможность обсудить и перспективы совместные исследовательские, и возможные проекты. И вчера даже у нас родился проект с профессором Виссемой об издании его замечательной книги «Университеты 3.0» в Китае совместной. Да. Поэтому, в общем, прошу включаться, обсуждать. Мы поддерживаем разные идеи и развитие, и продвижение репутации университета, в том числе и в Юго-Восточной Азии, в данном случае. Да. Так что передаю слово Виктору Валентиновичу для представления наших коллег.
Спасибо. Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Я просто, продолжая мысль, которая была высказана Эдуардом Владимировичем, это предложение родилось, наверное, еще и потому, что вчера мы прослушали уже лекцию профессора Ларсона, который сидит тоже рядом с нами, которая была как раз посвящена китайским проектам в Центральной и Восточной Европе и в России. И это была, конечно, замечательная лекция, кто вчера был и слушал этот материал. Значит, Йохан Виссема, я думаю, что многим нам известен по книге «Университеты 3.0». И нужно представить, я с огромным удовольствием представляю вам этого человека. Это почетный профессор технического университета Делфта. Это директор компании Виссема Consulting Limited, председатель фонда DIWA. Он изучал химическую технологию и вчера с огромным, так сказать, интересом посетил нашу лабораторию каталитических исследований и высоко ее оценил. Он изучал технику управления, в Нидерландах, Великобритании, степень кандидата наук PhD в Манчестерском университете. И профессор Виссема автор многих книг, около 16 книг. Они очень все разнообразные и интересные. Должен сказать, что книга, которая вышла буквально в прошлом году, называется «Сибирские уроки о жизни, любви и смерти». Да, но мы, конечно, знаем, если я как-то не так назвал, то профессор Виссема меня поправит.
No, it's perfect.
Да, и у нас, кстати, в библиотеке есть эта книга, государственная надпись для университета. Поэтому я думаю, что нас ждет очень интересная лекция, и с удовольствием предоставляю слово профессору Виссеме. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be in Russia, always. The other day I was talking in Moscow, and they said, why do you say you like Russia? And the answer is very simple. The Russians are philosophers, and so am I. So the other book is a philosophical novel. It was partly written in Siberia, and I like Siberia in particular, because it is so wide and open and still has so many possibilities. Now, Tomsk is the first time I'm here, and because it's not on the Trans-Siberia line, someone has been sleeping 100 years ago, unfortunately, but it's very nice and I feel at home in this university. Let us see now at the, I don't know, do we project the slides or how does it go? We can have the first one. Otherwise, we do without. The speech is called The Next, there we are, Next 20 Years, How Universities Will Be Changing. And the title of my book is two words, The Third Generation University, which implies that there are two other generations of universities. Now, I think universities are changing all the time. 30 years ago, you did not have a faculty of sociology because sociology was not invented. But adding a faculty of sociology does not change the university in a fundamental way. Whether you have 9 or 10 faculties doesn't change the model. Yes. Perfect. It doesn't change the model. Now, I think a number of changes are occurring today which do change the model and that we are going to a completely new type of university. So let me briefly tell you the three generations of universities. The first university I call the medieval university. The funny thing about these universities, they started in 1160, so that's pretty old, that they didn't do research. They were merely teaching the insights of the ancients, Aristotle, the church fathers, the Romans, and so on. And it led to very peculiar situations. For instance, if you would have asked a medieval scholar, what is the color of this desk? He might have said, it's black. And you might say, why do you think it is black? And he would say, of course, I know it's a bad example, but he might say, well, Aristotle has said that desks are black, and obviously this is a desk, so it must be black. And everybody would agree, not in agreement. Now, then, outside universities is very interesting. People started to investigate the nature, to look at it how it really is. I mean, if you look at the desk, it's obviously brown, right? So they would say, yeah, but come on, whatever Aristotle said, no, it's brown. So they come to these conclusions. And you remember these pictures of Leonardo da Vinci dissecting a body and looking what it was really like. So that is the first transition period, and it led to the second generation of university, which are the research universities. And this is very much the type of universities we still know. I would say in Russia or in the former Soviet Union, the situation was slightly different because a lot of fundamental research was carried out in academies of science and not in university. The university had more the applied research. But it's not a full picture. There was also a good deal of fundamental research in universities. So I've been trying in the East European countries to abolish academies of sciences, but I have not been very successful because they're very reluctant to change. Anyway, we got the Humboldt University, second generation. Now we have a new transition period and we go to the current situation. You can say a very short 9 characteristics of the third generation university. I think you can only call a university if it has fundamental research. And that is the basis of all our progress in science, but also in the economy. Now, the second thing is that in the past, research was monodisciplinary. You learn how to become, let's say, an economist or a chemist or whatever, and that's all you do. And that's how you can be very successful. And now you see that research has people have many disciplines. I have a cousin of mine who's a professor in Philadelphia in the medical faculty, and he is specialized in neurosciences, but he also has a degree in biology, and they have IT people on the staff, and this is just an institute addressing a particular kind of disease, and he has all the disciplines inside the team. And most people represent more than one discipline. If you ask, you know, my background is chemistry and control engineering, but now if you hear this, you might say I'm more like a historian. So it depends on, you know, we can all incorporate, and all of you are doing this. And there must be a lot of people from the management faculty over here. Well, management is transdisciplinary, if anything is. So it is changing. Open university, in the sense that know-how can be sold, and there's a collaboration with industry and so on. We visited yesterday some chemical labs over here, and I don't know whether the gentleman is here. Well, it's too many people to see. Anyway, you have a lot of research going on in catalysts. It's very successful, and people there create their own companies to bring this know-how to the market. They collaborate with industry and so on. There was an analytical laboratory, and they said that more than half of their funding comes from companies with whom they collaborate. So it's an open university. The traditional university is just part of the Ministry of Education, and that's it. Now, if you ask people, my generation, why did you go to the university you went to? The answer is, it was closest to the home of my parents, which is a very stupid answer, really. If you see children now at the age of 12, they're already looking for universities and so on. So there's more competition now for the best students, for the best academics also, and for also for research contracts from industry. Then a university has to have a certain size, otherwise it can't work. You could probably have a very interesting speech about that, but you cannot have a university, I think, with 1,000 or 2,000 students. You need a certain mass to have an IT department, to have a library, to have all kinds of other facilities. So universities become big. If a university is big, it has a competitive advantage, but it also dilutes the quality. So what you see now is that, for instance, in my own university, we have a Master of Science, we have it in 2 tiers. So there's a common course, but there is, let's say, a course plus to which the clever students can be invited, and they get extra facilities, they get more time from the staff and all the things that students like, and they get an honorary degree, which is on the diploma in very small letters, but every employer knows what it means. So these boys and girls have a distinct advantage over the ones that have the common education. I think we are going back to creativity in research. We have been over-specializing. The scientific method is very beautiful, but other things come in. I hope this university has a design faculty, and if it does not have it, I hope it will soon start one. Because you can bring an iPhone on the market and be very smart about the components, but it also has to look good and it has to have good operating characteristic. You can have it in one hand and do everything with it. And this is part of the design faculty. Now, then it's interesting in Russia that we speak in English, cosmopolitan university. The medieval universities has Latin as a common language, and there was enormous mobility. Students would say, you know, for this subject, why don't you go to Barcelona? There's a good professor there, and the next time you go to German university. So there was a lot. Now, in the second generation university, they became national. They had national languages. The first one in Berlin was teaching in the German language, which was a novelty at the time, the first non-Latin speaking university. And it's a pity that this got lost, because you get more boundaries between universities. Anyway, we're getting this back now with English. And then, very interesting, universities see as their objectives, first to teach, second to do research, but now many universities adopt a third objective, which is the sale of their know-how. Well, I can talk all morning about this. Some universities have special departments with lawyers who are specialized in intellectual property, and they do a good job in making a substantial financial contribution. For instance, in my own universities, we have good techno starters, and this was always played down by the university. So, okay, let this boy, if they want to be entrepreneur, yeah, why not, you know? And then the first guy sold his company. He had it only for 5 years, and he sold it for 400 million euro. So then all of a sudden the university became very interested in this. And you have also subjects in this university, I will tell you, if you do a proper exploitation, they will bring in 400 million euro. It's in this world of new companies, 400 million euro is not so much, but for a university, it's a hell of a lot of money. Then I think the universities now, we'll come back to that later, there's a lot of centralization. And in most countries, university cannot design their own courses and diplomas. They have to ask the ministry for permission. I think this is going to be disentangled from the state. You need money from the state, but in a different way. Maybe we come to this in the discussion. But all these directives you get from a ministry, as if the rector and the professors are incompetent of doing this themselves, is a pure waste of time, and it hampers progress. So I think this is very urgent that you have decentralization in education. And let's move to the second subject, because when I did the book and it was finished, I thought I haven't written much about education, about learning. And since then, this is some 6 years ago, the whole subject of learning has become very much in focus, and because there are a lot of changes. So maybe I'm going to do now a book on called The New Learning, because I think as far as learning is concerned, just about everything is going to change. When you entered the hall here downstairs, on the left side was a big photograph of a room with all kinds of students sitting there making notes, and that's the model. You know, the professor stands in front of the room, and the students they make notes and so on. That's how we're doing it already for what? For maybe 2,000 years, and this is going to change. Let us see how this is going to happen. So you can say that education system as we know it is a child of the Industrial Revolution. Here are some 6 characteristics of the Industrial Revolution. I think in general, if you want to understand our time and how it is changing, you should study the characteristics of the Industrial Revolution, because it is so deeply ingrained in us that you don't realize really what is going on. Anyway, there's a good deal of specialization. If you have a factory, rather than making one person, let us say, making a car, you have people who make components and they're assembled and so on. So the work has become specialized and this is more efficient. But we do the same in education. We have Academy of Sciences, universities, then we have technical schools. It's all, every subject is in a specialized box. Now the boxes are connected by synchronization, and also the education and work is synchronized. You get a diploma, and if the diploma says that you are an economist, then an employer who goes to hire you, he knows what he's going to buy. Just like you know what you're going to buy if you buy a kilo of sugar in the supermarket. It has a label which says 1 kilo of sugar, which tells you A, that it is sugar and not salt, and B, that you get a little more than 1,000 grams of sugar. So you know what you buy, right? You don't, very few mistakes are being made. So the idea of a diploma, university diploma or school diploma is exactly the same. So then this diploma acts as an intermediary with the employer. The employer will say, I need 3 economists. Okay, 3 economists. What? Yeah, 3 packs of sugar. So, no, I think this is very much going to change now. Standardization, of course, we have diplomas and courses. It's all standardized. And very often, centralization. Maximization. Of course, we want to have as many students and diplomas as we can get, because we all know that, knowledge is the basis of our prosperity. If we didn't have knowledge, we would still sit here in small huts in Siberia, like the, what do they call this? Whatever, the original peoples. And now we have this beautiful hall. So the maximization is an important thing. It makes education almost like a holy thing that you cannot touch. Like a dogma. Education is very difficult to change, because politicians are all connected with it, and they know that if you have good education, the country will prosper, and so don't touch it. And that is a big disadvantage. Now the school system and the university system is very much like the school system. And like the universities, the modern universities, the schools were invented in Prussia. Compulsory education, which was new at the time. I think when they introduced it, it was only for 2 years that children had to go to school. But the age is enlarged, but also made lower. And I think, at least in my country, there is a obligatory learning from 4 years old till 16 or so. Now, the message, sage on the state, we've dealt with that already. Standard curricula, if you study economics, you get a program and it tells you exactly what you're going to do. There may be 1 or 2 electives, but the bulk of the course is all standard. Then, if you have a year system like you have at schools, but also in medical faculty, if you miss a few subjects, let's say a child who's bad in mathematics and also in another subject, they fail, they have to repeat this year at school. Now, what a waste of money and of time, because 80% they passed, and they have to do it again.
Коллеги, кто у нас занимается техническим обеспечением? Не идет перевод. Слышите меня? В наушниках не идет перевод, идет шум. Давайте исправим эту ситуацию.
Is it okay now? Can I proceed? Yeah, go ahead. Should I wait?
No, we are waiting.
We have to wait a little.
Да у всех такая штука.
Это не у всех. Что может где-то кто-то пошевелил.
Неужели же, если бы у меня было, я бы это объявлял на все это, какие-то странные ребята.
Все.
So?
Все, Юрий.
No, it is better. Yes.
It's okay.
It's okay. We continue.
Да-да. Слышно,
No.
слышно, давайте.
I think, we see now, some characteristics of the original school system that I think you will all recognize. Curricula, diplomas, there's a school inspection, and maybe you have also university inspectors coming to see whether everything is done in a proper way and according to the rules prescribed by the ministry. And diploma, again, a link between school and work. And in a way, a diploma is a promise of society. It means if you graduate in this subject, we promise you an interesting job, which is increasingly difficult to maintain, that promise. So some recent trends are, there is a certain amount of flexibility. You have optional subject and even minors. My university, we do in Europe, we do a three-year bachelor degree. Half a year is a so-called minor. So if you study, for instance, mechanical engineering, you can take a half a year program in management, or basically anything that is on offer, and there's a lot on offer. You even have university colleges where there's a completely free choice of subjects. As long as the student fills a certain quotum of subjects every year, they pass with a degree, but it is just a degree from the university college. It does not say you get a degree in whatever subject you can imagine. And these students have to explain to an employer what they learned and why, and so on and so forth. I think, as you will see, that is the future. Now, we see a certain amount of distance learning. I think it's a bit overdrawn, the significance of it, but still, it is big. I found that there's an institute called Khan Academy, which was set up by some student actually. They solve 3 million mathematical problems every day. So, yeah, that's quite significant. It may be school children, I don't know. But it is important. Still, I think most degrees are being obtained in universities themselves. But there were examples of people in Central Africa who were studying Harvard University courses in economics, and they can do so because all this material is online. Now, there's more self-learning with the age of internet, and of course, IT is coming, and also entrepreneurs. Now we say these courses that you do, basically it's a system of coercion. So you have to do this. And if you don't do it, you fail, and then you're in a miserable state. Now, we want to have universities where people are driven by challenges and not by fear. The teachers become more like coaches than people who tell their stories. Is it working?
It's okay.
Okay. Now, there is a decline in the value of diplomas because as a tool to link the education with work, it is increasingly failing because people do more things than the standard thing and companies demand other things. I think human resources, this is Human Resources Days, human resources in companies is in total disarray. It's in total disarray because nowadays companies are driven by economics and staff is just a cost factor. I had a friend of mine who worked with Ernst & Young for 20 years and he was fired and they say, oh, you shouldn't take it personal, we just have to make some reductions in the cost. And he was doing a splendid job. So it is very impersonal and of course people who work in companies, they also see it as something temporary. If you got a new job, the first thing you do on day one is to look at the internet if there's not a better job available. So the loyalty from either side has reduced very much. Now then, there's also competition in universities from companies. IBM had their set of diplomas and you were IBM certified in this or that. And these diplomas were at least as worthwhile in the market as a university degree. Then, of course, we have artificial intelligence, to which I will come in more detail. Now, there are a lot of statements about this artificial intelligence. And it may be the next paradigm shift, similar to when we got computers and then we got internet. I think firstly computers and then internet has changed all our lives very significantly, and artificial intelligence may be the next thing to do so. Well, you can read this for yourself. You have robots, well, which is AI actually, that carry out, you can almost say they do a complete PhD. A robot can do a PhD. That's a little bit exaggerated. But it is coming close because they can design the experiments and analyze data, come to conclusions, suggest further experiments, just as a PhD student would do. I think all of that is still very preliminary, and we have to see whether it will proceed. There have been tests with tutoring by robots, by artificial intelligence, and in Georgia Tech, I think, yeah, they did this experiment, and they said you can't tell the difference in quality between a human teacher, so whether you talk to your students or this computer doesn't make any difference. Ah, that's interesting, isn't it? Now, what are now the drivers of change? I think if you talk about change, you have to analyze, first of all, the drivers. And I think on the supply side, so where you learn, there's a lot of brain research. Now, I'm not going to say much about this, but billions of dollars are being spent in the world on brain research, also in Russia. In Moscow, there's a neuroscience department of some university, and they do breathtaking work. They say the brain is the last organ in the body of which we know next to nothing, and this is going to change. So I don't know what comes out of this, but certainly something will come up that helps us to understand learning, because if you learn how it works in your brain, we know just about nothing about it. Now, from pedagogical research that we have inside artificial deep learning. Demand side, millennials, decline of standard job requirements. Let us go into this. This is just an overview. Now, these millennials, there's a lot of hot air about millennials. I think a lot of nonsense. But there are certain things that are definitely true. I meet, no, I wouldn't say a lot, but quite a lot of people of about 40 years old, and they say, we don't want to make a career. Yes, it would earn a lot more money, but I can do without it. I want to spend time with my family, with my friends, go to concert, enjoy the life. So these people, and there are a lot of you, of them, I would say, in this audience, they focus on life. The life comes first, and work is part of it, not the other way around. They see development, learning something in the job as more important than job satisfaction. If you can have a lot of satisfaction if you do the same job every week, and on Friday you can go home and say, you know, I have again produced this and that. But now people want to have developed, they want to learn something. They want to work for a coach. Someone is helping them to improve themselves, and not a boss who tells you what to do. In fact, having a boss who tells you what to do is rather stupid, because you have to develop yourself. Annual review. I think in a lot of companies they're skipping it altogether. I don't know whether this will come up in this conference today and tomorrow. But in HR, what's the value of an annual review? So they prefer sort of ongoing conference. Better to make a short remark at 5 o'clock than to have this whole circus of this formal process of forms that have to be filled in and so on. So 55% of millennials in companies feel unengaged. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an alarming figure. 55, more than half of these people of this age, let's say 35, 40, 30, 40, 45, whatever, feel unengaged at work. There's something utterly wrong in our society. Now, diplomas become more, a poorer intermediary, and I think we have a return, on s'appelle étudier pour étudier. You want to study for the sake of studying yourself, just because you find it interesting. And that's how a lot of studies started in the Middle Ages, and also later. You find it interesting. You don't learn and get a diploma in order to earn a living. That'll come afterwards. And this is a very nice article in the Financial Times by Nancy Rothwell, who is the head of the University of Manchester in England. And she says you should not see a university course as a financial investment only, because it is formative years for people who are between, let's say, 18 and 24, 25 years old. So many of them meet their partner in life, and they learn what their values are in life and so on. So it is a transformational experience, focus on principles and all that. And all of this is not part of the curriculum of the university. The rector might say, it's none of my business. But yes, it is part of the university education. And we have lost this. So, future of learning. I think either individualized self-study, you sit before your computer and you do work, but you can't do it all the time. You also have a lot of work in teams. And as we shall say, the millennials, they like to work in teams, which is also dangerous, because you can hide a lack of knowledge or a lack of interest when you work in a team, right? If as a teacher you get the result of a team, you don't know who in the team is good and who is not so good. So teamwork only is also not the answer. And then they say, they have projects. So in education, you move from project to project. And it's like these learning, like these games on computers, which so many people do. And then you get levels. If you have done 20 games, level 3, you get an invitation to move to level 2. And of course you have to pay. But it is, I think we should look at how people are gaming. We can learn a lot from it in designing education. Then this internet-based studies will be with AI systems, artificial intelligence system, embedded education. Already we have internships, but I think contacts with companies should start much earlier. Then is what they call phenomenon-based learning. It is the same principle which comes back in different worlds. There was one very nice example where a group of 16-year-olds in a Finnish school, they were asked to make a drone. You know what a drone? What is a drone in Russian? Or is it no? A drone? Yeah, this flying things. You know? So you can say, how can people of 16-year-old make it? Well, they did it anyway. But in addition to making the drone, they had to write a manual in French. So you can make combinations. And the idea of this teaching is that you go from project to project. So it's very much as in gaming, as I said. In Maastricht, in my country, they have a medical faculty, and they give first-year students, they go to a patient, they get a white coat, they say, investigate the patient, they say, I don't know how to do it, and they learn on the way. Of course, the patients are asked in advance whether they want to collaborate on this. But going right at it, not learning first 8 years of theory and then going to apply it some more years, but doing it from the very beginning. Now, teachers, I think there is a negligence in higher education about teaching. If you want to make a career in a university, you should publish as much as you can. And I think the result is twofold. First, we have a lot of crap in scientific journals. And second, teaching is underestimated. It's not so important. So this is going to change. I think good teaching is as important as doing good research. They say that students do not choose certain subjects because of the subject, but because of the teacher. Well, look at what you studied. A lot of you would say, yes, I studied this subject that I studied because I liked the teacher who taught that at school. So at least it was certainly so in my case. I studied chemistry because we had a fantastic chemistry teacher and with a lot of humor and so on. So for that reason, I chose the subject. Studied it for 6 years and never used it in a profession. Anyway, teaching has to be re-evaluated as a profession. So what is teaching then? It is partly being a coach and partly making these courses for teamwork or individual work that people do online. Let's say the games or the projects and so on. It's not like standing in front of the classroom. So I don't know how many of these classrooms you have in these universities. Maybe they can be used for a concert, otherwise they better break them down. Then no accreditation, all this nonsense that a government department tells you what to do and what you can and what you cannot do. No, you don't have that. You don't need inspection, you need an ombudsman where students can go to complain. The teacher is bad or a program is bad or whatever. This feedback, when it comes from students, it is far more effective and far more direct than when it comes from some school inspector. And then you can say, yeah, if you drop these diplomas, let's talk a little bit about diplomas. The diplomas as we have them, I call them output diplomas. So I spent 4 years at this university, I got a bachelor degree, and the degree tells the employer or whoever wants to see it what I have done. Now this is, I think, is pretty useless. what should be done is that the employer should say what kind of person they want, what kind of job vacancy they have to fulfill. And then the graduate should be able to have a pitch to tell them why he or she can fulfill this job perfectly well with this background they have. So you get an input examination. For instance, you have a, how do you call it, entrance exams. And you have also entrance exams. Now, that's the right thing. You have an entrance exam. Okay, if you want to study economics in this university, this is what you have to have in your pocket. I think that makes sense, and the company should also do that. But we have too many of these output examinations which have no role. Now, in Finland, this is very interesting what they're doing, because they are restructuring entirely their primary education, and secondary education. They're building new schools, and the classrooms have gone in the new schools. Instead, you have sort of lounges where you sit comfortably, and desks where you can sit with your computer, or tables where you can sit around with a team and so on. They have relatively small classes, and they're multi-age. And if you think about it, why should people at school sit in a class with children of the same age? Doesn't make sense. But it's all part of this idea of specialization that we had in the Industrial Revolution. So a lot of things we take for granted without thinking about it. And if you start thinking about it, you will see there's a lot of crap. So if you have students of different age, they also learn a lot from each other. My children were on a Montessori school where they have this to a certain extent. I remember one child came home at the age of about 8, and he says, "Father, now I understand it because I had to explain it to a 6-year-old. Yeah, then you understand it when you have to explain it yourself. So there's a lot of advantage of healthy multi-age classes. Students have a great say in the running of the school, and the teachers are very well paid, and they're also highly respected in society. But I must say this is also part of the Finnish culture, that teaching and learning is very highly respected. I think it is also so in Russia. I don't know too much about it. High regard for learning and teaching. No school inspectors. This feedback is by students. Short days, large holidays, but still the results. We have these competitions, between children in different European countries in math, science, reading, and maybe other subjects, and the Finns are always on top. So you can't say, this is a nice experiment. No, it works. And I think we should take this very seriously, what they're doing. So let me now conclude. A new type of university, no lectures, no classrooms, no major, no departments. This is one of the deans of MIT said this. Very interesting. But why would you have lectures? Why would you have classrooms? Why do you have departments? I will talk tomorrow a little bit about faculties. I think faculties have to go. They're a nuisance in universities. But that's another thing. So, challenge-driven university, transformational experience and over-specialization, and then an entrepreneurial environment where students pick their own subjects, but they should be, as of the first day, in contact with industry. So they can say, I like this subject very much, but from my conversations with various companies, I know there's no interest in these companies whatsoever. So I may skip this subject for something else, but give the students the responsibility. And now as a university or as a Department of Education, you take the responsibility for what they have to learn. Give it to themselves and teach them how to choose. And then it will be a succession of team projects or individual learning, as we said before. So thank you very much, Mr. Eck. I hope we have a good discussion.
Thank you very much, Hans. Коллеги, есть возможность задать вопросы. Пожалуйста, кто хотел бы быть первым, обозначьте свой вопрос. Пожалуйста, Ольга Сергеевна.
First of all, thank you very much for your lecture. It was outstanding, as well your book. And dear colleagues who did not read it, I strongly recommend to do this book of Professor Vissema. Then I would like to tell thank you for administration, for top management of TCU, and personally rector Eduard Kolozhinsky for unique opportunity to see you in Tomsk and listen you in Tomsk. It's really great, really. In other cities, it's impossible. Thank you very much. And a question. Your speech was rather brave as well, and too brave. And what do you think? How long does it take to transition period from classic education in class with department, so on and so forth, to no department, no classes, and how long does it take? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. Yesterday evening, it was the first time in my life that I ate bear. And I think the bear is still moving a little bit, so I do apologize for this. Now, how long will it take to change? I think it will take a long time. And you can't say, let us have a new system of education by 2 years' time, 1st of September. I think you have to introduce it gradually. And I would recommend you, and in medical faculty, you can do a lot of interesting things. First of all, there's the Watson technology with medicine, and I'm sure you can make learning modules where students work with Watson and patients, so there's just one module, and maybe it can replace a course or be in part of a course or something. So you make this one first, and then if they have to learn anatomy, I think that should not be too difficult to do it in an artificial intelligence program, because it's mainly memorizing and whatever. So you can put some courses and then learn while you're on the way. You start with the easiest, some modules, evaluate and have students talking about it, and they will come with suggestions. They will tell you what is good about it and what is wrong about it. So you adjust it all the time, and then you learn, and then you can see whether you want to expand it. So I wouldn't stop the traditional way of learning by 1st of September next year, so to speak, but sort of build it up, and then it may take 10 or 20 years. But university is already 900 years old, so 10 years is very short.
Thank you.
Пожалуйста, еще вопросы. Пожалуйста.
Good morning. I would like to thank you also for your very interesting lecture. And the picture of the future education that you described is really challenging, but personally I do like it. And my question is, well, I'm talking from the position of HR department of this university, so my question will be about that. Taking into consideration the managerialistic processes in the modern universities and the corporatization of it, what do you think will be the main role of the HR departments here in the light of all these challenges that you described? Thank you.
Well, in every change process, in every organization, the HR department plays an important role. I've been working most of my life as a management consultant to companies, restructuring companies, designing new strategies and that sort of thing. And the HR people were not only my counterpart, but very often also my friends, because you meet a lot of resistance when you want to change, and then the HR department is is helping you. So if you say, what can we do? The first thing is to be pro-change. And then you don't have to be as radical as because what I'm saying, I realize, you can't do all this on the short term. So it's more an outlook. It's called The Next 20 Years, the presentation, which doesn't mean it has to happen all tomorrow. There you can play an important role. Now, one thing is, for instance, and I can ask you, do you evaluate the teaching qualities of the staff of the university? Because you do rate the research quality, right? You keep track of papers published and whatever. But do you have a system to evaluate teaching? Do you know who are the best teachers, let's say? Do you do this? May I ask you?
Well, the system of the when we ask students about the quality of the teaching, the system is under development now, but there's not like a working system now.
Well, that's my second suggestion then. I don't know how you measure the quality of teaching. Usually you do it, I think, by asking students, but that's very subjective. I wouldn't trust that at all, because, well, let's say there are subjective elements and so on and so forth. And it would be a good thing to assess it, but also in terms of when it comes to promotions, you have a new job as a senior lecturer, let us say, and there are 3 people to apply for it, then in the current system, the person with the most publications will probably get the job. So I think you can change this, and say maybe for 60% it's still research results, but also 40% of the assessment that you do is in teaching, or something of the kind. But we should raise this level.
Пожалуйста, вопрос справа.
Алексей Клюев, журнал университетского управления «Практика и анализ». Спасибо за интереснейшую лекцию. Мой вопрос следующий. В целом, университеты первой волны, первой формации, это были очень маленькие университеты, и все процессы в них происходили вокруг личности профессора, преподавателя. Наше поколение университетов – это массовые университеты, и университетские рутины, к сожалению, становятся доминирующими в нашей деятельности. Стандартизация процессов и все с ней связанное становится одним из главных, вообще говоря, в нашей работе. И очевидно, что, в принципе, это заменяемо все. В принципе, наверное, здесь могут быть и системы обучения дистанционные, могут быть и роботы и так далее и тому подобное. И это все приводит к дифференциации в нашем сообществе преподавательском, которое требует выделения в массовом университете группы людей, которые обслуживают прежде всего вот такие рутинные образовательные процессы, массового образования. И выделяет группу профессоров, которые работают, что называется, собственно, в сегменте университетского образования. Каков ваш прогноз? Что будет происходить? Либо у нас внутри университетов будет еще один университет, настоящий университет, классический, во многом повторяющий, может быть, формат обучения университета первого поколения, построенный вокруг личности профессора. Или же рутинное образование уйдет в неуниверситетский сектор, и университеты снова вернуться к своему такому классическому качеству, новому старому качеству. Понятно, что на какой-то совершенно новой платформе. Спасибо.
That's a very interesting question. Let me go back to this first generation universities where I said they were engaged in teaching what the ancients had found, and they were not looking at the nature. And what you see then, that this modern science develops outside universities. All these I don't know all the names, but a lot of inventions, microscope and telescope and astronomy, everything was done outside university. The fact that the sun turns, the Earth turns around the sun and not vice versa, was all done outside university. University opposed it. Then in the second generation universities, the remarkable thing is that they were not interested at all in applying their results. All the 19th century major innovations, starting with steam engines, and then going on to gas lighting, electricity, electrical lighting, electrical power, photography, telephone, telegraph, you name it. It was all done by inventors outside universities. And then, all of a sudden, after the Second World War, it became an objective of universities. Now, coming to your question, these modern teaching methods very much comes from companies. In New York, under Bloomberg, when Bloomberg was the mayor of New York, he stimulated very much these companies developing courses and was done outside the educational system. And then it proves to be more effective, and schools, they absorb it. And they had spectacular results in poor areas where you have almost illiterate children come to school at 6 years old, and then they have really spectacular results. So I think it will be a mixture of both. Universities are certainly changing. I mean, I've been only here one day, but you can see so many elements of a third generation university already in practice. And this can be expanded on. But there is a lot of it already. On the other side, I think you will be challenged by the free market sector, where they will offer new approaches in education which will force you to adopt them.
Thank you very much for your estimation.
Пожалуйста, еще вопросы. Где? Нажмите кнопочку. Теперь видно.
Благодарна вам за интересную лекцию. А вопрос у меня следующего рода. Известно, что в эпоху нового времени школа ориентировалась на подготовку человека образованного. Собственно, эта модель использовалась или привела в конечном счете вот к индустриальной революции, о которой мы говорили. Мне интересно, с вашей точки зрения, на какую модель будет ориентироваться современная система, ну вот с точки зрения определения таких самых типовых характеристик. Благодарю.
I'd say if you would describe it very briefly, the biggest change is that the students get responsibility for what they learn and not the system. Right now, the system, and by system I mean your Department of Education in Moscow and the universities, and this whole elaborate process of getting your courses approved and all this means that the system is responsible for the quality of education. Make the students the subject of quality of education. We have a free market. You can, if you want to buy a car, nobody tells you which one to buy. You do it yourself. And because you can choose what car you like the best, the cars improve all the time because there's competition, right? So if a lot of people don't choose brand A, they will have to scratch their head and say, what are we going to do? We're missing out on something. So I think if you put it very short, put the students in charge.
Еще вопросы, коллеги?
Позвольте вопрос?
Да, пожалуйста, Олег Борисович.
Большое спасибо, профессор, за ваше замечательное выступление. Это сильно продвигает нас, тех, кто читал вашу книгу, переведенную Сбербанком. Еще раз большое спасибо. Мой вопрос очень простой. Скажите, пожалуйста, можем ли мы ожидать в каком-то ощутимом ближайшем будущем ликвидацию единых дипломов как результата деятельности университета?
I wish that were true, but I don't think so. I don't think diplomas in the short run will disappear. You will have entrance examinations, whether it's for schools, for universities, or for jobs, that's for sure. I think they will become more important. To be very honest, I don't see in Russia what is the point of having a school exam and having an entrance exam. You just steal the holiday of these children who have finalized school and have been working very hard, and then they have a couple of days off and they can start all over again. Now, what's the use of this? I think in certain professions, the diplomas will stay. You're not going to be operated upon by a doctor of whom you're not sure whether he had a proper education and whether he can make the knife very, very sharp. So, yeah, you need for, let's say for the medical profession, you need a sort of state exam and say, now here we measure this characteristic, this person is allowed to act as a general practitioner or specialist or whatever it is. But this applies also to your gas fitter or your electrician, because if you got some hooligan playing around with your house may be burned down. I think no need to explain. So I think for certain professions, you will have, I call it in the paper, call it public functions, where you have to have a quality standard. But in many professions, this is not so. One of my children studied IT, and he was very sloppy with his end-of-term project. So at a certain point, he applied for a job with IBM, and they accepted him, but he said, I want to finish my studies, so I will come in January. Okay, he came in January. He hadn't completed his studies, so he was very nervous. And they had introduction days for new employees, and then at the end, he plucked all his courage together, and he told the HR lady like yourself, I'm sorry, but I haven't finished my diploma. Now, the answer this lady gave is very interesting. I will tell you slowly. She said, she says, if you are interested to finish your studies, we don't mind. No, so much for the value of a diploma.
Да, пожалуйста, еще.
Да.
Профессор,
пожалуйста. Да. Доброго вам и хорошего настроения в Томске. А вопрос такой. Вы говорите о том, что студент – это проект. Тогда вопрос. У студента главный проект – это его учеба, его работа или его жизнь, в которой результатами проекта является состояние его детей и его родителей?
Well, I started studying in 1960. If you calculate, you can work out that I'm very old. And we had an introduction address by the rector of my university in Holland. And he said, you have to realize that whatever we teach you at university is only half of what you need. And the other half is to be learned in students' life, in societies, and we had a lot of clubs. I think I was a member of at least 5 clubs, and in music and in fencing and sports and I don't know what else, debating. That is formative for you. You change yourself, you become into a mature person, and you discover your values, you discover how you relate to other people, of your own, etc., etc. So I think the purpose of a university is to teach students how to solve problems. That is the essence of teaching. Because you can teach it how much kilometers is between Moscow and Petersburg, but they can also look it up on the internet. So there's no need to teach them all these facts. But how do you solve a problem? It's also in the medical faculty. How do you solve? You get this patient, so how do you do it? And you can look up a lot of things. Maybe people don't need anatomy anymore. I don't know. It would be an interesting discussion. Yeah.
Anatomy is forever.
Sorry?
Anatomy is forever. It's impossible to don't need anatomy.
Let's have a cup of tea. No, maybe I'm exaggerating. I don't know. But I think basically it is, you need to be able to solve problems. And I think the university should enable students to have formative years in societies or whatever it is. And you have these universities where you have to work really hard day and night. You know, if you do a Harvard MBA, they work at night and the weekends and so on. I think these courses are pretty useless. They learn more of the same, but very essential parts is missing, and that's why many of these managers are failures.
Спасибо, пожалуйста. Еще вопросы?
Можно
Еще
вопрос?
у нас есть. Да,
Можно?
пожалуйста.
Спасибо за лекцию. Но у меня такой вопрос. Вот как вы видите, вот в новой модели образования, которую вы, в общем-то, представили, понятно, что методики, которые вы там показали, уже используются у нас. Ну, роботов нет у нас, автоматического перевода там нет у нас. Но как вы смотрите, что из себя будет представлять и нужно ли будет уровневость образования? Бакалавриат, магистратура и так далее.
To be honest, I haven't thought about that at all. But it's a very good question. It all depends on how employers see the need for such degrees. I can imagine that. No, let me put it a different way. In England, the majority of students with a bachelor degree they go to work, and only a small amount, maybe 20 or 30%, I don't know by heart, will carry on with a master's degree. While in my country, it is theoretically possible to find a job with only a bachelor degree, but 100% of students go on for a master's degree. Now, if 100% carry on for a master's degree, you might as well say, what's the use of a bachelor degree? One use is that under the Bologna Agreement, students can change university. So if you have a bachelor degree, you can go to another university for a master's degree. I tell my students in Delft, which is mainly boys, that if they do 2 degrees in Delft, they're very stupid unless she is very beautiful. Thank you.
Может
Еще
быть,
появился
вопрос,
вопрос.
да, еще один
Пожалуйста.
вопрос, может быть, такой. Я бы так со стороны студентов. Что бы вы пожелали самого главного вспомнить студенту через 50 лет после окончания университета?
We have been talking a lot about lifelong learning, éducation permanente, but in practice we don't do very much about it, and what I see that we are doing is also not very effective. You have certain professions, like in physiotherapy, where practitioners have to obligatory to follow courses in order to keep their license and so on. But I think the result is marginal. Now, the beauty of this new educational system where you have modules that you can do, it would also mean that they can be made available to people at a later age who use these models to learn something. And they don't get a degree, or they don't need a degree anymore. They have already jobs and profession and so on. But in order to keep up with it, they can form these modules. And I think intelligent employers would say, I'll give my staff a week off per year, or maybe 2 weeks, I don't know, but a certain amount of time, but it should be devoted to learning. So you have a week off, but you have to tell me what courses you've been doing. And if you have a job as an electrical engineer, but you choose this week to learn Russian language or Greek philosophy, that's fine with the employer, as long as you develop yourself.
Уважаемые коллеги, ну, наверное, будем завершать, потому что этот вопрос, раунд вопросов можно продолжать бесконечно. И, кстати, очень многие вопросы, многие ответы совпадают с нашим видением, мы сами себе их задаем и сами же пытаемся отвечать очень часто. Поэтому предлагаю ограничиться вопросами и передаю для заключительного слова микрофон Эдуарду Владимировичу.
Спасибо. Дорогие друзья, наверное, от нашего общего имени разрешите поблагодарить профессора Виссему за замечательную лекцию и сказать, что у нас еще 2 дня работы, и сегодня, и завтра можно пообщаться в кулуарах, и мы договорились, что особенно завтра, по-моему, во второй половине дня у нас созданы такие группы рабочие, где мы планируем и с профессором Ларсоном обсудить возможность совместной исследовательской деятельности, связанной с экономическим сотрудничеством Европы, России, Китая и развитием отношений, исследовательской повесткой в этой области. И мы планировали с профессором Виссемой обсудить как раз проблематику, связанную с изменением содержания, обучением, трансформацией университетов, и тоже будем искать совместные исследовательские интересы. Так что кому эта тема значимо, для кого интересно, пожалуйста, включайтесь. Ну и будет возможность еще во время конференции, у нас много интересных гостей, мы их тоже представим, наладить и контакты, пообщаться. Я думаю, это начало такого большого диалога и продолжение той работы по осмыслению университета и выбора приоритетов развития наших на ближайшее время. Я всех благодарю за участие, особенно наших ректоров, которые сегодня тоже пришли, да, Андрея Александровича. Ну и в 12 мы здесь же встречаемся на открытии нашей конференции HR Trend. Спасибо.
what you love.